Join the Wide Whale team May 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern for part 2 of our 3-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident. For part 2, we will look specifically at residency. Using AI topic analysis, we've analyzed the free text of 400,000 Google reviews from residents of hundreds of top multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50, to identify how often 50 key topics are mentioned by residents. By filtering for and analyzing the topics by life cycle stage, we can isolate which topics are more influential during residency, versus tour, or renewal. Go to widewhale.com/data to sign up or find it in the revised community. That's widewhale.com/data.
Welcome to Thriving in Multifamily, a visionary podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. Join in as we explore motivation, inspiration, and engage in thought-provoking conversations. We provide actionable ideas to help you establish a solid foundation to achieve your career goals. I am your host, Lissi Daniels, and I'm excited to bring you inspiring stories that will empower you to reach your full potential. Welcome to Thriving in Multifamily, a visionary podcast. On today's episode is brought to you by Multifamily Media Network, and I am your host, Lissi Daniels. And today on our episode, we are going to be talking about making the transition from retail to real estate. Boy, I'm ready to dive into this, and I have a very special guest, Phaedra McKibben. So let me give you a little insight about Phaedra, and I'm excited because we're going to have some fun today, right, Phaedra?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Phaedra McKibben is a regional director at Trinity Property Consultants. With over 2 decades in the industry, Phaedra oversees 17 properties in West Texas, transforming value-add communities and driving substantial revenue growth. A dedicated industry leader and active member of several associations, Phaedra's commitment to excellence and passion for inspiring others shine through. She loves event planning and vintage shopping and spending time with her partner and her lovely pets. Please, let's welcome Phaedra McKibben to the show.
Thank you for
Hi.
having me, Lucy.
Oh,
I'm really
God.
excited to be in here with you.
Me too. This has been a little long time in the making from when we set it up and connected. I just knew right off the back. I'm like, I got to get her on this episode, on this podcast. Let's chat through things. And so let's kind of kick it off, right? Like, what's a fun fact that you just want to tell the world out there? I know I said world.
Yeah, no. And it's funny, I recently learned what my fun fact was. We were at a leadership conference a few weeks ago in Washington, D.C., and we had 30 seconds to go around the room and, just rapid fire, tell everything about yourself in 30 seconds. And I'm like, gosh, what do I say? And, you feel the pressure of oh my gosh, I got to get this in and get this in and get this in to paint this picture of who I am. And I'm like, okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. So the thing that stuck out the most, I rattled off so many things. The thing that stuck out the most was that I took up as a hobby DJing in 2018.
What? DJing? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I love all things artsy. Music is, something that's always been in my heart. And I was like, I could teach myself how to do this. I think I've got an ear for it. So yeah, I kind of taught myself, bought myself all my own equipment. I had my living room was all decked out. It was ready for a party 24/7.
I would never just thought DJing, but hey, you never know. And that is so fun. So you're a lover of music too, right?
Love it. Yeah. It's funny. The girl that kind of pulled me aside was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that about you. You seem so buttoned up. And I'm like, girl, I am unbuttoned.
For perceptions. People just did not know that you are a DJ. That's fun. That is, that's exciting.
Positive DJ. I'm not performing at any events.
What?
There's 2 people in my lifetime that have ever heard me do that. My friend Jamie and my friend Samba. That's it.
Our next association event is there at Rocket 1, 2, 3.
With the pressure, I might choke. I don't know.
Love that. Now, that is a fun fact for sure. Okay, so let's kind of dive into our topic. So, on our episode today, we're focusing on transforming careers. What were some of your biggest challenges you faced when moving from the retail into this industry?
Well, I found myself laid off, which
Mm,
was a shock. I was a store manager for Guess
uh-huh.
Jeans. Shout out to Guess. This was back in the day.
I know.
So,
Oh,
um,
I'm familiar with the guests. I love them.
so I get fired because my store isn't making its numbers any longer. And I had to go down to my apartment office where I was living. I was in a high rise in downtown Dallas, and I had to go down to the office. And my tears were not even dry yet. I promise. I
Oh,
was in there just looking haggard, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I've just lost my job. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my apartment and my car. And
yeah.
so I talked to the property manager and I'm like, I've lost my job, unfortunately. I need to know what that looks like on breaking the lease. And she was like, well, I may have an opportunity for you. I have a part-time leasing consultant job
Hmm.
that I'm hiring for. And, I had the sales and customer service down. So I'm like, that sounds appealing to me. I could do this. What I didn't realize was what a step backwards that was financially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, I was collecting unemployment for a very short period of time. And I'm like, oh gosh, like I know I'm going to have to hustle in order to maintain this apartment, maintain my insurance, my car, and my phone. So I struggled through it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I was eating anything cheap and fast that I could. Um, and I've pivoted a few times. So I have
Yeah.
numerous challenges. Um, I decided while I was the part-time leasing consultant that I was going to go back to school because I had a
Okay.
passion for information technology. So I enrolled in school and I was going to get my computer networking systems
Okay.
degree because at that time
Wow.
IT was a place
Yeah.
to be. But I went through that, worked full time. I got upgraded to full time, went to school full time. And when we graduated, that's right around the time when the dot-com bubble burst and no one was hiring. So I'm like,
Ugh.
okay, well, what do I do now? Like, I was so laser focused on this IT gig and being in the IT field that I don't know what to do now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I like leasing, I like working with people, which would
Mm-hmm.
have been the same thing that I did in IT, is like helping people, fix whatever's wrong with their computer or their printer. So I was like, okay, well, I think I'll stick with this because, I started to get promoted. I got
Okay.
promoted from part-time leasing to full-time and then to bookkeeper and then to assistant manager. So I just kept kind of climbing because I had the dedication. I knew like, okay, I need to
Mm-hmm.
get my income back up to what I was used to being, a store manager. Going down
Yeah.
to part-time leasing was a shock to the system for sure.
I always say it's always something that happens in our work careers, those pivotal moments that make us be like, okay, what am I going to do next? How am I even going to survive? You hit it right on the nail. You go through all these different emotions and you're like trying to figure out what am I going to do? And I think,
Mhm.
we all can relate to that in some kind of way where, if you've been laid off or if you lost your job or you pivot into a different direction, that it makes us like, okay, let's buckle up. Let's figure out that next step. And boy,
Mhm.
that's inspiration because I feel like that's happened to me at one point in time too, from you have been laid off and you're like, what am I going to do next? All right, Lacey, let's figure this out, and then
Mhm.
walk into this path, which kind of guides me into our next one when it comes to those pivotal moments and guiding you as a leader. And how has that shaped you on your journey?
Well, I grew up with very little. We were a pretty poor family. So, I felt like, okay, I'm equipped to like handle this and I'm equipped to do what it takes to be successful and grow in my career because, at
Mm-hmm.
this point I've decided multifamily is for me. I love helping
Mm-hmm.
people. I love the interaction. I love that the day to day is so different. Um, I had some supervisors along the way that, unfortunately didn't lead in the way that probably should have been leading,
Mm-hmm.
leading by fear or,
Yeah.
not training. So that really shaped me into who I am today. I
Mm-hmm.
have to understand I don't don't know everything. I don't have all the answers, like I like to do a pulse check with my team. Like, okay, am I so far out of reach? Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts? And I know that they
Yeah.
appreciate that.
No, I'm sure they do. I love the fact that you, as a leader, you recognize that, you understand that. And I think it's because you've gone through the experiences of good leaders versus non so good leaders. And it helps you shape who you want to be and what you don't want to, replicate. But I love the fact that you said pulse rates, like, hey, let's type our pulse rate, and you're being that open and allowing that. And to me, I think that's, amazing in itself. But then it also shows you how you grow. And we're going to talk about that a little bit about how your teams are being so successful within that. And so it just taps on like, so who is your biggest motivator? Because you seem like you're such a driven individual. You go from one point to the next point. Who motivates or inspires you to just like, you know what? I want to keep going. This is where I'm at. This is where I'm trying to evolve.
Well, in present day, I'm motivated by everything and everyone around me. I
Yeah.
follow you, I follow Stephanie
Oh,
Anderson, Ronald Harrington has great chats.
yeah.
So I'm inspired by everyone in the multifamily space. I listen to a lot of
Yeah.
podcasts, I watch a lot of videos, I read a lot about industry trends and where things are going. But like from the start, my mom was
Oh.
my motivator and my inspiration. My parents separated.
Mm.
She found herself without any really marketable skills. So she had to work
Mm.
3 jobs in order to support 3 kids.
Oh,
And,
wow.
just seeing her resilience and how she
Hmm.
forged ahead and didn't get discouraged. And that
Yeah.
was, that's just instilled in me, my sister, my brother. Like we saw that as the example as a parent.
Hmm.
And that's really formed the person that I am today and my drive for success. I'm always asking questions, I'm always trying to better myself and understand what's next. I think this podcast should have been called What's Next, right?
I absolutely love that too, because it's true. It's like, what is next to your career? No, but I'm just listening to your story of that. And it just, your mom as being that biggest motivator in your life is so endearing to me. And it made me have that like setback, like aha moment. Cause I feel that I see it coming through. And at the same time, our moms paved the way. My mom paved the way. And so, and, as women and her story and resilience is so important of why we are who we are. And then your inspiration of who you named some great people out there who you follow as well too. But kudos to your mom, in regards to how she has helped shape you and how you want to continue to grow within. And and that's how you cultivate resilience. What's some other ways you cultivate the resilience if it's not just with your mom, but just on your career journey or just your journey in itself?
I think it's, knowing that you've come from very little and knowing
Yeah.
that you have the ability to set your own path. You have the ability to
Mm.
shape what success looks like for you because success
Mhm.
looks different for everyone. It's like, it's not driving the nice car, it's not having the big house.
Yes.
Success looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
And, I feel like, when I got into this business, I was kind of climbing the ladder and then I got smacked off the top rung, like ready to launch into my career and then kind of built back up
Yeah.
again. So, if there's one thing I can say, just don't get discouraged. Maybe that
Mhm.
path was not for you.
Ah,
Um, so, I'm sitting here today very fulfilled in what I'm doing. I love the company I work for. They treat me very
yeah.
well. But I'm always seeking more. I'm like, okay, how can
Yeah.
I develop my skills more? How can I get to the
Mhm.
next step?
And you are dropping some gems left and right in regards to, you are the creator of your own path. You are the one that is guiding it. And I think that's something that within, individuals when they're trying to grow in their career, they feel like they got to have a certain way of doing things or they have to grow a certain direction, but it's not like that. It's, sometimes it's about what is it that you truly are passionate about. And I love how you said that success is defined in so many different ways, right?
Mm,
And I think one thing I've learned about success is about being happy. Success is
mhm,
about fulfillment and making that impact with people. And, and it's funny when like long time ago, I used to always think, I got to climb that corporate ladder because
Mhm.
I need success because this is where I'm at. Because it was one that it showed you who you were. And I think in that process, I learned differently that where I'm at now to where I was like, okay, I can step on that. See, you're inspiring me, Phaedra, like just the words that you're saying. But I think it's true. And people out there, you're inspiring them as well. Like, define what makes you happy. And
Mhm.
success could just be your family in itself. And so you become an inspiration to me just on that. And when I feel it, I'm just like, I got to tell you, I think it's amazing in the same sense. So how do you continue to motivate your teams through this when it comes to like if you have any challenges and keeping them upbeat, but just as we grow with them? I mean, you have a large portfolio and to
Mhm.
be where you're at and continuously growing and lead with influence and inspiration. How do you do that? What are some strategies with that?
Well, I try to keep the human element. The way I speak to you is the same way I speak to my team, the same way I speak to
Yeah.
my girlfriends, my partner. He thinks I'm wild, but
Wow.
like worse than like having this stuffy supervisor and being scared when they come visit the property. People, I like to think that people look forward to my visits and they're like, oh, can we do
Yeah.
lunch? Let's do a manager's lunch,
Yeah.
and it's just really knowing that I'm very self-taught, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
I had the sales and customer service down coming from the retail
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Then I was basically handed keys and a manual going, okay, here you go, good luck. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to use this system in that way and pay bills and like, what am I doing? So, I want to make sure I'm always explaining the why to my team.
Ah,
Explain the why
yes.
to your teams. I cannot express that enough. It's like you're telling them to do something and they don't understand why.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's a longer way of getting things done. And it's a longer explanation process. But when they understand why, you get that light bulb moment and that little,
Mm.
you get that aha in their voice and you're like, okay, now they get it. I'm like, don't, if the light bulb doesn't go off, guys, please tell me to explain it a different way because sometimes it just go off on a tangent.
She sit there and said it's the why factor, right? You're really sitting there breaking it down for your teams for them to understand. Because I've seen a lot of leaders within this, at my time where they don't explain that. And I think at the end of the day, I've always said I don't want to be one of those leaders where someone, when you walk in, they have to walk on toes or they're fearful or, and I love that you bring in the humor and at the same time, like the down to earth, because I think that's relatable, right? We all know and respect you as a leader, but at the end of the day, you want that power of influence with that. And so I love that you did say why, because it is a lot of us don't always know what the why is. And for us to be able to come to a leader and say, hey, can you help us through that process? This speaks volumes in itself too. But
And
it's so
I'll admit too, I was a terrible leader. When I first got into management, I was like, the typical young kid that's like, oh, I'm in a position of power
yeah.
now. I want to do this, this, and this. And one of my best girlfriends, I've known her for 25 years. She used to work for me at Guest. She loves to tell people, Phaedra is the only manager I have ever had in my life that has ever written me up. I'm like, are we still going here? Are we still talking about this? She's like, yes, because I think it's hilarious. I love you, and you were very difficult to work for. I'm like,
I
thanks
love
for the honesty. Now I'm gonna like change my whole approach.
But what's so funny you say that because I think at the end of the day, we don't just, wake up and say, I'm going to be a great leader. We have to go through our trials, right? We have to go through just learning curves of becoming a better leader. And it's funny that at the end of the day, it's like we don't all have it perfect. We all don't know all the answers. But that's the part where I think you mentioned also about the growing side of it, right? Having that growth mindset and continuously learning. I think that's really important as leaders is to continuously have that education to grow and to build so that we can be able to help our teams become more successful. Man, I'm telling you, some gems dropped today on this beautiful day, even though we both said it is cloudy outside, right? So how do you help navigate anything? How do you help navigate your teams when it comes to their career journeys and their career paths to where you're giving them the opportunity for additional, education courses or networking? How do you go about that?
Join the Wide Whale team May 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern for part 2 of our 3-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident. For part 2, we will look specifically at residency. Using AI topic analysis, we've analyzed the free text of 400,000 Google reviews from residents of hundreds of top multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50, to identify how often 50 key topics are mentioned by residents. By filtering for and analyzing the topics by life cycle stage, we can isolate which topics are more influential during residency, versus tour, or renewal. Go to widewhale.com/data to sign up or find it in the revised community. That's widewhale.com/data.
Well, I have a saying, we're all of you are future leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's my responsibility as a supervisor to build the bench. We always
Ah,
talk about building the bench. So, I need to find that person that could move into my shoes if something were to change. So, build your bench. Um,
yeah.
regular one-on-ones are super important. There's some intimidation there too, especially with like annual reviews, one-on-one touch base. Everybody always thinks, oh gosh, I'm in trouble. You want to have one
Right.
with me. Well, I'm like, no, this is a very constructive one-on-one. We missed our income for April. Let's go
Yeah.
through the P&L and look at where we can make some improvements here. So I want them thinking that way. Like, think like a business.
Mm-hmm.
You are running a
Yes.
multi-million-dollar business,
Yes.
and let's look at the holes. Like, we were budgeted for X. Is it do we need to walk more patios and issue more lease violations? I mean, like whatever that looks like. So really getting them to get into the financials, dig into the details,
Mm-hmm.
understand they have an impact.
Mm.
They impact their community, they impact their residents, they have an impact on their financials, which in turn, positive NOI increases your property
Yeah.
value and, all things that go into it. So it's important to train on that. There's
Mm-hmm.
no formal like training handbook on a lot of things. I learned the hard way about that, but
I think we all learned if you come back way back in time and we've grown to where we're at. So yes.
yeah. So it's
But
just, letting them know you're all future leaders. We need to build our bench. So, who reports to you, like develop them, show them the
yeah.
financials, talk to them about leasing phone calls and how we can make improvements and why it's
Mm-hmm.
important to improve leasing phone calls, why it's important to ask all
Yes.
these benchmark questions.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we forget, we get complacent, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we just forget, like, oh, I'm doing this day in and day out. How many occupants are in the home, and how many pets, and
It's like, okay, this is my daily role every day. What am I gaining out of it? You just like you're showing them the bigger picture. And I love that. That's the impact. It's like you're not just part of the maintenance team. You're not just part of the leasing team. You are making a big impact. And like you said, you're part of them. What a multi-million-dollar asset. And at the end of the day, what you do, it's really big and it's important. And it kind of
Mhm.
trickles up. And going back, those benchmark questions are amazing because I think it's important to have involvement with your team and ask them so they can understand that it's not just coming in and answering the phone and leasing or make ready. It's a bigger involvement in that as well. So
Mm.
I have to kind of go and like take a step back and do some bragging rights for you because I was listening, I was looking at your bio and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm excited. So I'm just going to kind of say this. So under your leadership, your region saw a 20% increase in operating receipts, of 29% rise in your NOI. What strategies did you implement to achieve such a remarkable growth? Because I think that is so awesome to kind of highlight.
Well, thank you. It took a lot of research, right? A lot of dedication from my teams. You got to get the buy-in from the team first.
Yes,
If
yes,
they're not on
yes.
board, nothing's going to happen. Um, so, we really went back to the lease and dissected
Yeah.
every single addendum. And in the state of Texas, on our utility addendums,
Uh-huh.
there's allowable late fees. And we're
Yeah,
like, oh my
okay.
gosh, we're not charging these late fees. We're charging a late fee on rent that's automatically triggered by the system. But if a resident, and listen, utilities are always the last thing that people pay. They'll pay their rent and they're like, oh, I didn't get my utility bill. And you're like, yes, you did. It's in your mailbox,
Right?
or on your ledger. Like I saw you log into the portal. Um,
God, I
Utilities are
love that.
the last thing that people pay. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we need to be a little better at diving in, running that delinquency report, charging those late fees on the unpaid utilities, and eventually the residents will understand. They're like,
Yeah,
okay, I need to pay
yeah.
all of this at once and not just, oh, I'll
Uh-huh.
pay it with next month's rent.
Yeah, exactly.
That was
Wow.
when
What
we did that. The resident retention obviously is huge. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I can proudly say we have, as a region, retained 49.5%
Whew.
of our residents. So 50% retention rate, which is awesome in a very volatile area that is Midland, Odessa. That's oil country. Um,
I'm giving you applause on that one.
it's a very transient area. So the fact we were able to achieve that is great. Just making sure everyone from property manager to porter
Mhm.
understands the budget. Like,
Yeah,
what do we have budgeted
yes.
for this month? What do we have budgeted for the year? And keep those expenses super tight.
Yeah.
If we don't need it this year, let's punt it to next year. Let's just make a note,
Mm-hmm.
start a little binder for next year's budget, and just make a note in there. Hey, we didn't need that this year because we had an
Yeah.
allowance, but next year we'll definitely need to do it. Just because you have money in the
Yeah.
budget doesn't mean you have to spend it.
Right?
I'm like,
But
why? We need that Louis Vuitton bag. We got a little extra bonus or something.
spend it on training. Okay. Put it back for training and marketing. I was kidding. But I just think that's amazing. And it's a true testament of you as a leader as well within your teams and how you grow and what you build. And I think you kind of like really said a lot when it comes to really involving your team, right? In the discussion, understanding the budget, knowing the why factor, but just giving them the opportunity to know that it's a bigger picture, it's a bigger impact. And to me, that's inspiration. That's someone that I would want to follow and lead on that sector of that. So, you do such an amazing job on everything on the sides of with the work. But how do you keep that work-life balance and still be able to have fun and DJ? I'm gonna next event. Okay, next event.
I was not, I was, I'm a workaholic. I will tell you firsthand, workaholic. And, I had to learn over the years, all right, if your tank is empty, you're no
Yeah.
good to anyone. You're no good to your
Mm-hmm.
family. You're no good to your friends. You're no good to your employer. You have to refill your tank.
Yeah.
So what I do in just a daily practice, I still use a spiral notebook, as old school as that is. I write a list every day. I write a list of the things that I want to accomplish for the day. And we have, we as people have a bad habit of putting off that one thing that we don't like to do or something that's going to be time consuming. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
really retrain my brain to say, you know what? I'm going to knock this out first while I'm sharp. I've had my coffee. I'm ready to go. I'm energetic. And then all the other things are kind of secondary to this one big thing or these two big things. So
Yeah.
if you have carryover to the next day, there are smaller things that aren't going to be the end of
Mm-hmm.
the world if you carry over to the next day. Like I was
Yeah.
always, oh, I got all this done on my list. But in
Mm-hmm.
our industry, there are so many twists and turns. You may have an agenda lined out. Okay, I'm going to conquer the carpe diem. I'm going to conquer this day. And then you've got all kinds of outside influences coming in at you. It's like, being in Star Wars, you got all these like enemy
Yes.
attacks happening.
It's like you had great intentions. You're going to start off like
Yeah.
positive. I got this. And then, okay. And it's just 8:10. Now it's changed.
Totally. It's just, and you haven't, I always felt a little defeated, like, oh, I didn't get everything done on my list. Gosh, I need to get better at list writing. I need to get better at
Yes.
prioritizing things. I need to do a little better with my time management. How long am I
Mm-hmm.
spending on this? And if I'm doing
Yeah.
a financial review of a portfolio or of a property, how long is that going to take me? And I can time it out. Okay, I've got 17 properties to review. Each one's going to take me about
Yeah.
30 minutes and knock that out
Yes.
first.
It's so important. I always like to throw that with the work life because I think, as you said, our world is always ever changing. Our industry is always fast paced. It could be one day one way and the next day it's another, or 1 minute, right? It just doesn't, it just
Mhm.
depends. But you're right. We have to always go back to us, right? If we don't take care of ourselves and put ourselves first, who are we going to be good for anyone else out there? So
Mhm.
when it's time to take breaks, take those breaks. When it's time to take
Mhm.
your time off, take those time off. And at the same time, because you come back 10 times, 100% refreshed, better,
Mhm.
regrouped, right? At the same time. And I think I
Mhm.
learned the hard way, just like you. Like I was workaholic. I'm always like work, work, work. And then you get exhausted from that mentally. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you are no good to anyone. So I
Mhm.
definitely think you have to have that some kind of way, even if you don't have a lot of time off. But just take those moments. If you feel it, like I need to take 5 minutes, take the 5 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, this has been
What's
such
the
a
use of have a little dance party in your office, to give you a little mood of
yeah.
the
Well, we should have had some music. I say we could have like done it. Like I'm enjoying this conversation with you. This is like perfect. This is how it should be. But
day.
who have you ever had a mentor or a coach to help you or guide you or throughout your career path in this journey in itself?
Good. So I worked for a smaller fee managed company. They're not in business any longer. And they really kind of started me on my regional manager journey. I've
Mm-hmm.
been in the business for 20 years and I was
Yeah.
on site for 5, and then
Okay.
I've been a regional for 15 now. And I'm going to show you something really silly.
Yeah. I love it.
This woman, she was the director of operations. Her name is Darcy Dillavue. Darcy, I hope you're watching this because you
Yes.
formed me into the person I am today. So she's like, okay, we're going to sit down together today and we're going to go through how to break out a P&L report. I'm like, break out
Okay.
a P&L report? I'm like, okay. So Darcy Dillavue, you will be very pleased to know I still use the mechanical pencil that you taught me to use when you're writing all over your P&L report. Okay, we bought 8
Oh,
light bulbs and all. I still use it to this day, and my team's like, "You're always using a pencil." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I screw up. I need to be able to erase
right?
sometimes."
I'm not perfect. What are you talking about? I don't.
Like, it's for the agenda. The pencil is for all the other stuff.
Oh my God. That is amazing. Shout out to her. Darcy, you have left a lasting impression and continuously leave an impression as she uses a pencil every single day on that. So, but I think it's important to have mentor and coaches. I think we all had, one throughout our career. I had a later start with a mentor. And
Mhm.
and when I have them now, God, they bring so much insight. They put you in check. They make you think outside the box. And I always say, when you have a coach or mentor, have one in all facets of your life because not
Mhm.
one coach or mentor is meant for one thing. There could be a business one, it could be for family, it could be spiritual, it could be whatever that person that
Mhm.
is for you to grow and build. And I have learned that now in later years, not like I'm just spring chicken here, but I'm just like growing in later years. But at the end of the day, it has helped me become, a better person. And so shout out to that. I think that is amazing. If you can have one significant change as a leader, or if seeing leaders, what would that be? What would your thoughts be on that?
Okay, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion.
Oh,
So
let's get in there.
I'm welcoming everyone to the roast of Phaedra McKibben. The acronyms. The
Mm,
acronyms that we have introduced are crazy. And when I say this, like, I'm not resistant to learning what all these acronyms mean,
yeah.
KPI, PPI, PPC, SEO, AI, ILS. I'm like, oh gosh. So I'm like, I have to go into having a conversation with a team member, assuming they might not have any idea what I'm talking about. So I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about key performance indicators,
Yes.
KPIs. You just keep like talking about
Yes.
so, going into the any meeting with a team member, just obviously don't insult their intelligence,
Oh
but
yeah.
just okay, we're going to talk about key performance indicators. We're going to talk about the
Yes.
SOP, the standard operating procedures. I'm like, can we just not introduce any more acronyms? I'm trying to keep up as it is. I have a list of like 25 here.
You say that because, but think about now in our life and trending things, everything is so short-handed, right? As far as text messaging and all that. But hey, if we can cut down on the acronyms and we keep what we already have, that is what is it? A PSA.
PSA for the acronym.
Public service announcement.
That's hilarious.
I'm so sorry. I did not mean to say.
I know. I was like, I don't even know if I want to talk about the acronyms because people are embracing them full
Right.
force and
Oh
wholeheartedly. Like,
gosh.
oh, here comes the SOP with the KPIs. I'm like, oh my gosh. We're not even. I feel like I'm living in this alternate universe where we don't speak English. I'm like, okay, we're talking about the SOPs and the KPIs and with SEO and PPC.
Conversation. And if anyone new coming in, they're going to sit back and be like, what?
I know. My boyfriend is like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, so SOP is.
Oh
And
gosh.
I take that approach when I'm talking to my team. I don't just assume they know what an SOP is. And
Yeah.
sometimes people are too scared to ask. They're like,
Yeah.
what is ROI? What is NOI?
Yes.
And I'm not going into it knowing, okay, you automatically know what return on investment is. What's ROI, return on investment.
Valid point there. I think if you are someone coming in and they're learning new areas and they never had to do that there should be something to where it's training and put forth out there so that they don't feel afraid to ask a simple question on that end of that. But boy, that was too funny.
Can we just write a handbook on acronyms and decoding all the acronyms? I would be on board with that.
Sure. Anyone out there want to take that on? Because I'm not. Oh, Phaedra, this has just been such a delight having you on Thriving in our episode, Thriving in Multifamily, our episode, but just getting to know you, share some really insightful insights, understand things that we should change and things that, that just hearing your story is so inspiring. And I know someone out there is going to listen and they're going to be very truly inspired as I am listening to it and knowing where your transition from retail coming into multifamily and how you continuously grow. So with that, I do have a couple other things as far as you've been so heavily involved in several different associations. What would you tell someone when it comes to just networking and really putting their name out there?
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The old thing that your mother used to tell you, don't talk to strangers. We want you to talk to strangers now. We're telling you it's okay. Talk to strangers. That's how I know people, and I've told my area manager, I've told her, like, okay, anytime we go to a leadership function or, if I'm at any sort of apartment related function, I'm like, okay, I'm not putting you on the back burner, but I want to encourage you to get out there, sit next to someone new. We all have something in common. We all have basic icebreaker questions like, so what do you do? And how do you deal with challenges in that role that you're in? These are just very basic questions. So, getting out there, being a little uncomfortable with being, the new kid and not knowing anyone, but we're all new kids, right? So we're just all going to make a new friend in kindergarten. We're going to say, you're going to be my friend for the day.
You are going to be my friend, as I say. I love that. It is. It's all about just putting yourself out there, networking, asking those questions, and stepping out of your own fear, your own comfort zone, right? And I'm telling you, it truly is remarkable because you never know where you can be at without that networking. And then they become lasting friends. And who knows, someone in that networking can become your mentor, your coach. You just never know without getting out there. So I definitely agree with you. Well, it has about come to an end, but I would love to hear Phaedra's lasting thoughts on one powerful word of encouragement and why.
Well, I have this saved on my computer as just a daily reminder. My words of motivation: your dedication fuels progress. Your resilience breeds success. And your passion ignites change. So keep pushing forward. I'm very fulfilled in what I'm doing now. Don't give up. And if your life takes a left turn, take a right turn. find something that you're passionate and motivated about and go for it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Phaedra McKibben, for being a part of this episode. This is Thriving in Multifamily. I am your host, Lissi Daniels. And as always, stay visionary. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Thriving in Multifamily, a visionary podcast. I hope our conversations have inspired you to act and achieve your career goals. Remember, the key to success is to continue learning and growing. And as always, stay visionary. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.